Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new session. So it's Thursday. So we are back with a new session of current updates. I hope all of you have been watching our current update sessions, and I really hope these sessions have been useful to many of you. And since NET is around the corner, so I thought we should be now focusing exclusively on some topics which are really useful for the NET exam. So here with me is Ananya. Hi, Ananya.
Hello everyone. Hi.
So, Ananya, what are we doing today?
So, in our current updates, we are covering Dalit autobiographies this time. And it is obviously a very important topic that we should be covering right before next.
Okay. So yes, as Ananya said, today we will try to talk about some Dalit autobiographies which are not very widely known, but again, they are very important from net perspective. Okay, so let's move on for our towards our session. So Dalit autobiographies is the subject of today's session. We will try to talk about a range of Dalit autobiographies and look at their authors and try to understand their position. So let's go. Okay, so let's move on to the first autobiography for today's session. Yes, Ananya?
So, Baluta is an autobiography, of course, by the Indian writer Daya Pawar, written in the Marathi language. Now, according to Kalita, Baluta introduced autobiographical writing to Dalit literature. Baluta is seen by the Encyclopedia of Indian Literature as an attempt by the writer to be personal, yet objective and representative. The title generalizing the status of rural untouchables. So it records the writer's struggle for peace, a struggle with no chance of retaliation in word or deed. Now, an Indian translation has been written by Jerry Punto, and it was published in 2015.
Yes. So Baluta is a very important autobiographical work by Daya Pawar. And when you are studying about his autobiographies, please try to remember the translators as well. Like here, the work was translated by Jerry Pinto. So we often see questions in exams where they ask about the translators as well, right? So please try to remember the years, the translators, and often the publishing houses, right? These days, publishing houses are also playing a very important role when it comes to questions in exams. So please try to remember these facts. They can be very important during exams. All right, let's move on to our next autobiography. Okay, so the next work that I will talk about is Fakira. So Fakira by Bhau Sathe. So born into an untouchable community, Bhau Sathe's upbringing and experiences shaped his writings and political activism. Winner of the Maharashtra government's Best Novel Award, Fakira, among his best known works, is one of the first prominent Dalit novels in Marathi. The undaunted and ceaseless battle of the eponymous character, Fakira, for the collective welfare of his community forms the narrative. And you know, there's facts which we are reading here. There's facts is also very important to understand, like what are the features, what are the characteristic features of Dalit writings. Okay, so these facts can also be important when you get statement type questions. Okay. So this character Fakira, he revolts against the rural orthodox caste system and the British Raj to save his village from utter starvation, humiliation, and death. His efforts are dramatic and daring, and his methods in violation of the law. When attempts to capture him fail, the British authorities hold the community hostage, stating that unless Fakira surrenders, they will torture his people to death. Translated by Professor Baliram Gaikwar, Dalit magnanimity, fighting spirit, and thirst to live a dignified existence are at the core of the novel. Again, you know, these are the features which often characterize Dalit writings. You know, their political positions which signify their work. encompassing both historical and contemporary reality, as well as the truest human emotions and situations. Fakira is a part of a powerful literary genre that brings to the forefront the most encouraging, moving, and realistic delineation of Dalit lives. So, when we do a phenomenological analysis of such writings, that's what we study, right? The experiences, the lived realities of these people. So these are also the important features which often can be very helpful when you get statement type questions. So please be very careful when you also read the questions, try to understand what they're actually saying, and the questions will be very easy then. Okay, let's move on to our next work. Yeah. Okay, so before we move on, we would just like to give you a small reminder that from May 10th, we have started there's admissions for our 6-month regular course for December 2024. This admission is for our offline classes at Trivandrum, and the classes will start from July 1st. And there are also 4 numbers on the screen where you can, throw your, shoot your queries. And so you can get enrolled for this course and start your preparations for your December net from now only. Okay, let's move on to our next writing. Okay.
Outcast is a memoir by Narendra Jadhav. Narendra Jadhav's Outcast, a memoir, it was initially published in 1993 in Marathi and was entitled Amcha Bap and Ami, Our Father and We. The book was translated into French under the title Untouchable and in 2002 by Fayard Paris and has been translated into several other European languages. Now, the book portrays Dalit social history during pre and post independence in India, his memories and experiences with his family members, and Outcast, a memoir, is a struggling journey of their family and the whole community as well. It is a book of memoir that puts together the story of 3 generations spread over 80 years. Everything in this slide is a very important probable point for exam.
Okay. So that's all about the work Outcast Memoir by Narendra Jadhav. Also, try to remember the titles correctly along with the authors. You can also get match the following and stuff. So be very careful about the facts because facts are very important when it comes to such competitive exams. Okay, let's move on to the next work. Yeah. So the next work we will talk about is Water in a Broken Pot by Yogesh Maitra. So I found this work really interesting, and that's why I added this. So incredibly moving and hauntingly honest. Water in a Broken Pot is the memoir of Yogesh Maitra, a leading independent Indian Dalit publisher, writer, and poet, encompassing experiences of pain, loneliness, deprivation, alienation, and the political consciousness of his caste identity. This intimately moving memoir is a story of resilience and raw brutality. Growing up in a working class family with meager wages to get by in life, Yogesh writes of his father's struggle against alcohol and passion for cinema, of intergenerational dreams shattered, working day and night shifts in factories, the struggle of being lost, overlooked and unmentored in India's schooling, college, and university systems, which continue to be casteist, exclusionary, and hostile, and feelings of lovelessness, loss, and heartaches. So, Water in a Broken Pot is a very significant work from the oeuvre of Dalit Autobiographies, and it's a work by Yogesh Maitra. And it again talks about the lived experiences of this writer, like how this caste, how his caste identity has, from his childhood onwards, has excluded him from every privilege possible or from every basic amenities possible, like education, right? So education is a basic amenity we can all hope for, right? And even in the spaces like universities and colleges, you experience this casteist uh, behaviors, right? So that's what he's talking about, that every space of his life has been marked by his caste. So That's the pain of being excluded from every space possible. So it's a very important work. So Water in a Broken Pot by Yogesh Maitra. Very important works. To look up all of these works in more details. Okay, next. Yeah.
I Want to Destroy Myself, a memoir by Malika Amar Sheikh. Now, I Want to Destroy Myself is Malika's searing, angry account of her life with Dhassal, the unvarnished story of a marriage and of a woman and a writer seeking her space in a man's world. Malika Amar Sheikh's autobiography is also a portrait of the Bombay of poets, activists, prostitutes, and fighters. So there isn't another memoir in Indian writing as honest and pitiless as this. It was published originally in Marathi, and it quickly became a sensation and vanished as quickly. Jerry Pinto's superb translation revives this lost classic and makes it available for the first time in any language other than Marathi. Jerry Pinto is obviously a very important translator.
So I Want to Destroy Myself. I Want to Destroy Myself, a memoir. It's by Malika Amar Sheikh. So let me tell you a bit more about Malika Amar Sheikh, because that will help you to contextualize this work better in terms of who she was and why this work is so important. So Malika Amar Sheikh was born to communist activist parents. Her father, Shahir Amar Sheikh, was a trades union leader and legendary Marathi folk singer. Brought up amidst the hurly-burly of Maharashtrian politics of the 1960s and exposed to the best and the brightest in Bombay's cultural scene, Malika was a cosseted child drawn to poetry and dance. She was barely out of school when she married Namdeo Dhasal. All of us are very much aware about who Namdeo Dhasal is. He's a very famous Marathi poet, and he was also a co-founder of the radical Dalit Panthers, right? We all know Namdeo Dhasal. So she married Malika Amar Sheikh. She married Namdeo Dhasal, and celebrated poet of the underground he was, Namdeo Dhasal, who transformed Marathi poetry with his incendiary verse. So she is the wife of such a celebrated poet, right? So after the initial days of love and the birth of their son, the marriage crumbled. But again, their marriage was not really a very happy one for a long time. Namdev was an absent husband and father, given to drink, womanizing, and violence. So, though he is a very well known and famous poet, but he was not really a good husband and a father. Okay. And he was uninterested in his family. Namdev Dhasal was not really bothered about what's happening with his child or wife. And while he would repent his actions and his negligence, and they would make up, he never stopped or reformed. So though they patched up time and again after quarrels and fights, he never really tried to change his ways, right? I Want to Destroy Myself is Malika's searing, angry account of her life with Namdeo Dhasal. So it's such an important work. It's a very important work which talks about Namdeo Dhasal's wife's life and brings us a very unknown picture of the very well-renowned poet Namdeo Dhasal. Because though he was a very famous poet and all, he was not really a good husband and a father, right? So it's a very important work, I believe, from this perspective. Okay, so that's all about this work. Let's move on to the next work. Yes, Ananya.
So Veeramma, Life of an Untouchable. This is a work by Veeramma. Veeramma tells her fascinating life story with the unsentimentality, humor, and dramatic sense of a of born her carefree childhood, her marriage before puberty, giving birth to 12 children, very gently like smoking the rose. That is quoted. Adult life as an agricultural worker condemned to bake in the sun, in tales of gods and malign forces, like Ursi Kateri, the fetus eater who casts their shadow over her daily life. These are all references to the work itself. Told over 10 years to Josiane and Jean-Luc Racine, this is an intensely personal and moving self-portrait, informed by a sense of profound social change in contemporary India. To emancipationists, Viramma is a Dalit, one of the oppressed. To Gandhians, she is a Harijan, a daughter of God. In her village, she is still treated as an untouchable, a pariah. In this remarkable book, she reveals the world of an extraordinary woman living at the very margins of Indian society.
Again, Viramma. It's a phenomenal autobiographical work by Viramma. She is a Dalit woman, a writer also. And this work, every word of this work actually speaks of her pains, her groanings, right? So it's a very important work to look up these works, try to remember the chronology also. So to look up all of these works, I think each of them is important in their own ways. Okay. So before we wrap up, I really hope you guys liked the discussion today. And we tried to bring some of the not very well known but very important works. And so before we wrap up, I would just remind you that from May 10th, we have started the admissions for our offline Trivandrum classes for December net 2024. And the classes will start from July 1st. And if you want to enroll for this course, there are two numbers on the screen where you can contact for further information and get enrolled accordingly. All right, so that's all for tonight. Ananya, shall we wrap up?
Yes, we definitely should. And these works, when you introduce them, I hope everyone who is watching the video just takes a little time to just see if something interests. This is a wonderful series from where you can maybe find your interest area for research. So, all the best to everyone for your exams. Good night.
Yes. All right. So we will see you guys again tomorrow at 9. Till then, take